Yeah, good morning, Nigerians. I want to use this opportunity to commiserate with good people of Kogi State over the death of Prince Abba Karaudu. And having said that, most Nigerians are peddling sentiments and rumors. And that is why we find ourselves in this unfortunate situation. Let me take a look at the legal implication of what is playing out in Kogi State. Section 31 of the Electoral Act. I want everybody to bring your pen and paper. Section 31 of the Electoral Act, subsection 1, provides that political parties seeking to participate in election shall seek within 60 days before the date appointed for that election, submit the names of the candidates standing in for the election. Subsection 3 said, INEC having received this nomination from political parties, shall within 7 days publish same. Section 33 of the Electoral Act provides two situations and circumstances upon which substitution can be made by political parties. The first one is death, and the second one is voluntary withdrawal by candidates. Section 35 of the Electoral Act provides that 45 days to the day appointed for an election, there cannot be any withdrawal by any candidate. What this means is this: even Abba Karaudu cannot withdraw from the race 44 days to the election. What it means, if he cannot withdraw, what it means is that any withdrawal as at that point in time becomes invalid. And as such, the political party such person is representing cannot substitute any other person to participate in the same election. Now, Section 36 of the Electoral Act, which serves as explanatory notes to Section 33 on the cause of death, he said, if after the delivery of nomination, what this means is this: that political parties must have conducted their primaries and submitted the names of the person that emerged to INEC. If as at that time a candidate dies, then there is a second leg to it. He now said, if before the commencement of polls, and I'll now refer Nigerians to Regulation 9 of INEC Guideline 2015. He said polls commences by 9 a.m. What this means is that if Abba Karaudu died 7:59 a.m. and it is to the satisfaction of National INEC Chairman or Resident Electoral Commissioner as to the fact of death, how do you now satisfy somebody as to the fact of death? Is by presentation of certificate of death, stating what caused the person and which time the person died. What caused the person's death and which time the person died. Now, if INEC is now satisfied the person died before 8 a.m. on that day, on the day of election, in this case it is 21st of November 2015. If Abba Karaudu had died after 8 a.m. on that day, the door is shut against APC. That is the position of the law. Because the people are saying it is not clear, it is clear. The law is very, very clear.
Mr. Nene, you have jumped the law.
Now, let me refer to the first question you asked me. As to the returning officer is an agent. He's a certified agent of INEC. And INEC is bound. And any other person that participated in that election is also bound by the decision of that returning officer. He's not on his frolic of his own. He's appointed by INEC, and INEC has a duty to appoint returning officer as so which it must not necessarily be a staff of INEC. It can be ad hoc staff. After all, we have youth corps members.
So did he do well? Did he, within the ambits of the law, do well to read from the guidelines of INEC and based on that declare the election inconclusive? Because that's what Mr. Doja said.
Yes. I will Nigeria once again to Section 53 of the Electoral Act.
Yes.
Section 53 of the Electoral Act, subsection 2. It says if there is election and there were cancellations or overvoting, to the extent if there is election and there were cancellation arising from overvoting, INEC shall cancel the result of that polling unit. And if INEC is of the opinion that the result of that polling unit or units shall affect the overall result, INEC shall declare the election inconclusive and conduct election in that unit for another day. And subsection 2 says, if INEC takes this decision That is subsection 3 of section 53 of Electoral Act. If INEC takes this decision of inconclusiveness, it shall not make a return until elections are held in those affected polling units. Now, I also refer Nigerians to regulations cited by the returning officer. Regulation, that is regulation 44, paragraph N. It has similar provisions. People are just peddling sentiment. Now, subsection 4 of that section 53 provides, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, if INEC is satisfied that even the outstanding result cannot affect the overall outcome of the election, INEC can proceed to announce the result. Now, as at that time, this issue of satisfaction is subjective. It depends on who is wielding the big stick. If he's not satisfied that the result shall affect the overall outcome of the election.
Now, let me bring in this, because I'm not a lawyer, and we thank God we have lawyers here, and we're talking about the Electoral Act, and of course we still have the Constitution. In Section 179(2) of the Constitution, it says a candidate for an election to the office of governor of a state shall be deemed to have been duly elected where there being 2 or more candidates. A, he has the highest number of votes cast at the election, and B, he has not less than 1/4 of all the votes cast in each of at least 2/3 of all the local government areas in the state. Now, as a lawyer, would you say the APC candidates actually met all of this? And which one supersedes the other?
You are reading the law upside down. Even if, hello?
Which one supersedes the other?
Yes, go ahead.
Even if Prince Abubakar is to be alive today, at best, in the eyes of the law, he is a gubernatorial candidate of APC. He has not been duly elected in accordance with that section you cited. Unless and until a return is made by INEC, nobody can assume or presume to have been duly elected as such.
Okay, let's come back to the studio. Let's ask Mr. Adibolo.
And I think that we were gradually becoming victims of politicians. And that's why I made my opening remark that there's a lot of explanation that the ruling All Progressive Congress and General Muhammad Buhari government owe Nigerians. There is no circumstance that justifies the declaration of that election inconclusive.
None.
Not a single circumstance. By logic, by law, by the facts, Prince Abubakar had won the election clean and square. And that's why I'm telling you there's more to it than you could see. But the people who are in control of government, the Buhari government, the APC, and INEC, having gotten inside information of the knowledge of the death, knew that it was suicidal for them to announce that
again,
election.
I'll say that before we go into issues that we don't have evidence. Let's stick with the law here. Some of the things he has quoted here. He's saying that even if Prince Audu was alive, he could not have been declared winner because he has not fulfilled that portion of the law that Yemi read out. Based on the fact that there are other portions like the Electoral Acts that he read and quoted and the INEC guidelines. And I asked the question, was the returning officer within the ambits of the law to have read from that document produced by INEC, empowered by the Constitution to produce such rules as to guide him in conducting an election?
The section that she read, section 179, gives a guideline on who can win the election. That guideline is not operative until there's a declaration from INEC.
Okay.
It's just that it's a guideline to know between two contestants what are the criteria and the yardstick to determine who to declare a winner. But even if somebody has met those requirements, he could not assume on his own to have won the election until there is a return by INEC. So there has to be a formal declaration, there has to be a formal return, and there has to be a certificate that is issued by the relevant officer authorized by law to do so. So even if Audu is alive today and he has met those requirements of section 179, he cannot be declared the winner of the election until there is a return. It's just that we all know within our minds that he has met the requirement.
To some extent, Mr. Doja was wrong in saying INEC, the returning officer reading that document was wrong.
No, as of now, even if he was wrong to have read it, since INEC has not disowned him, Since INEC has already accepted that the election was inconclusive, there's nothing we can do about that.
Okay, so what do you think is the right thing to do now?
Who is in section 181?
Yes.
Section 181 sub 2. Because from the circumstance we have now, law is not helping us. There is no specific provision of the law you can cite
now
to justify any action you want to take now. Because if he's leading the election, he has to be alive to sustain that leading. The death in law is a terminator. Death cancels marriages, death cancels ownership of property. Even a case in court, death cancels it. In the circumstance of the death has nullified all the permutations that we are making. Because you cannot preserve election in the memory of a dead person. To say that the vote we have now is 200 and something thousand naira votes in favor of Prince Abubakar Audu, who unfortunately is dead. And let me cite a scenario to you. In faraway Taraba State, if you recall, the tribunal said we accept that PDP won this election by the majority of votes cast. But the candidate presented by PDP, Darius Ishaku, was not qualified or was not properly elected. The votes were not preserved in favor of the party of PDP. The tribunal transferred the vote and gave it to the person who was next and declared the candidate of APC as the governor-elect and that INEC should swear her in. And APC was rejoicing. And people were rejoicing everywhere. I'm not in PDP, I'm not in APC. But let justice be square. Okay. If you are doing it one way in this way, you do it that way in the other way.
Okay, because
so you're asking me the solution. I just digress. The solution is clear. You cannot ask APC to go and elect a new candidate in his primary.
No.
To come and take over or inherit the votes that Audu garnered while he was alive. There's no law sustaining such.